Welcome everyone to another episode of SG Crypto. Today I want to go over the risks of EXFI V2. I've been getting a lot of questions about it in the comments of recent videos, and I've only really been able to give short answers, and so I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a more in-depth video on specifically the risks of EXFI. Because the risks, like impermanent loss in particular, applies to not only EXFI, but it applies to every other decentralized finance platform that you're going to be involved in. So let's get into it. The first one is an impermanent loss, and the second one are the bugs, which cause loss of funds. Hence the term experimental finance. Doing it at your own risk. Okay, so let's start with impermanent loss. And this only applies to you if you're going to be switching your SGB into Canary Dollar, and the only reason you'd be doing that is if you're going to be entering liquidity pools on FlareX, Flare Farms. And actually, one thing I do want to mention is impermanent loss as a whole will not apply to you if you use your wrapped songbird to mint Canary Dollar to then enter these pools. I did a video on that, on how to do it. That was my most recent video, so definitely check that out if you're interested in that, because then you can totally dodge this as a whole, and that's less risk the better. So our example prices are going to be, for Songbird, it's going to be 30 cents per Songbird and $2.15 per Canary Dollar. So let's go with the example that you have 300 Songbird for this, and let's say you want to enter the Songbird and Canary Dollar liquidity pool on FlareX at the prices above, and you plan to stake in that pool for only a week. Now you would need a 50-50 ratio of the assets, so it would look something like this. So you have 300 Songbird and want to enter the pool. 300 Songbird equals $90, and so you want $45 in Songbird and $45 in Canary Dollars to make that 50-50 ratio. So you deposit 150 Songbird and 20.93 Canary Dollars. And that is because of this math right here that I laid out for you. And you deposit both of those into the pool to create that 50-50 ratio. Now 1 week later, you're going to exit the pool, and the price of Canary Dollar is now, it's still at the same price, $2.15, but the price of Songbird has increased to 50 cents. And so you would trade your 20.93 Canary Dollars into Songbird, and you would get 41.86 Songbird. Now, and the reason I got that was just the math laid out here. I'm going to have all the math laid out next to the actual numbers itself, just so I don't have to keep going through it. So in total, you lost 108.14 Songbird because of that initial 150 you put in minus the 41.86 that you now have when you cashed out. And you have a total now of 191.86 Songbird because of that initial 150 plus the now 41.86. So in US dollars, you now have 95.73, which if you think about it, you started with 90, you now have 95, so you actually made money. But the thing that you got to take into consideration is now if you kept your Songbird instead of switching into Canary Dollars and going into the liquidity pool and all that stuff, your your 300 Songbird would now be worth $150. So you actually would have made $60 more. So you didn't really lose money, but you missed out on making 60 bucks. And this isn't really mentioning the rewards that you would have gained from the liquidity pool over that week, or the FTSO delegation rewards that you would have made in that week from Songbird delegation in the FTSO. So that's really what impermanent loss is. I kind of went through it a little fast. That's probably the simplest I can kind of make it for you. And just so you guys know, this is not always going to work out in your favor. You're not always going to make $5.73. You're not always going to be on the upside of it. Sometimes you can lose a shit ton of money. Like, let's say if Songbird went up to $1.50, you would be down a lot of money, almost all of it. So, it's not always going to work out in your favor. I kind of just pulled these numbers out of thin air, that 30 cents. And so it just kind of worked out that way, but you're not always going to be seeing, that. You're not always going to be making money. So that's why impermanent loss is so important to understand. Now, so yeah, that's what impermanent loss is, and this is really, like I said, one of the biggest risks you face when entering liquidity pools in EXFI V2. or any other DeFi platform, as I mentioned in the beginning. And also, I didn't do the example, including the rewards you would have gotten from the liquidity pool from that week, nor did I mention the rewards you would have accrued from the FTSO delegation in the case you just left your 300 Songbird delegated. And the reason I didn't do that is just it's unnecessary. It just make the video longer than it had to be for you guys. And I don't know if I said this already, but I will leave the link to this Google Sheets, or not Google Sheets, but Google Slides. I will leave it in the description so you guys can kind of go at this at your leisure, your own pace, and really just kind of grasp impermanent loss and what it is to the fullest. I didn't really grasp it entirely until I started just kind of writing down equations, going through it on paper, and just doing that over and over again until I finally understood it. And that's kind of what you got to do. Maybe some people learn better than others, which I believe to be true. So that's just how I learned it. That might work for you. So remember, this is called impermanent loss. I want to underline that because the losses that you would have experienced, the losses that you accrue from this they're only impermanent until you cash out. So if you didn't cash out after that week's time, they would still be impermanent because they haven't happened yet, because you still have that canary dollar. And so let me just kind of go through this. Remember, this is called impermanent loss, and the losses that you would have experienced if you enter the LPs would have only been realized if you swapped from canary dollar to Songbird, and that is when they are permanent, hence the term. So, like I said, you can wait for the price of Songbird to come down in this example that we have laid out here, and then you could switch back once it comes back down to 30 cents or even below that, because then you'd be making even more Songbird. The choice is yours, obviously. So, kind of, the second one is the second risk is bugs with EXFI. That could cause the loss of funds, or just Songbird not going where it's supposed to, you not getting paid out the right amount of money. Just there's tons of things that can happen. And that's why this is the experimental finance platform. You're doing things at your own risk. And the reason this isn't the experimental finance platform is so when Flare does launch, we're going to be ready to go, and there's not going to be any problems. And yeah, so there's not really much to say here because bugs are a possibility, and they can happen to anyone at any time in the use of this platform. So use at your own risk. And yeah, so just some final thoughts. I'm not worried about impermanent loss with this platform, with Songbird Finance or EXFI, whatever you want to call it, because I'm really after DeFlare. That's really what I'm staking for, and all the other governance assets. So I'm staked in this for the long term. I'm not really going back and forth between Canary Dollar, Songbird, Canary Dollar, Songbird. So whether the price of Songbird or Canary Dollar fluctuate, it really doesn't matter to me because of that reason. They won't be permanent to me if I never swap out. However, I will, have to swap out once the new dApps come along in the future, or when Flare actually does launch. So there will be a time and a place when I do have to swap, but I'm gonna worry about it then. It doesn't do me any good worrying about it right now. So that's really it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. And also any tips you got from me. And also something, if you noticed I didn't mention something in this video, any risks that are involved with EXFI or any sort of decentralized finance platforms, please let me know, man. I love to learn together, and that's the best way to do it. Let's adopt that Henry Ford way, and then just make each other better. So with that, I hope you guys have an awesome day. Like I said, I'm gonna drop the link to this presentation in the description so you guys have access to it. And if you guys enjoy more, if you guys are kind of on the road, something like this really isn't ideal because you got to read it. And so I do have a podcast, and I'm going to be making more videos that go kind of hand in hand with this type of thing. So I probably won't explain impermanent loss in my podcast because that's something where you got to have the visuals, and but my podcast is a place for you to kind of listen on the road and learn about Flare Finance or other platforms on the go. Because that's what I do. I love to listen to podcasts, books, etc. while I'm driving. Music just kind of becomes too much sometimes. So yeah, with that, man, all that stuff will be in the description, and I hope you guys have an awesome night. Take care.